What really happens when a Hollywood star suddenly disappears? One year, they're winning Oscars and selling out theaters. The next year, their name is missing from every trailer, every magazine, every red carpet, and the strangest part is, the industry barely talks about it. Some left because of heartbreak, some left because of addiction, some left because Hollywood itself broke them. Today, we're telling the untold stories of actors who walked away without warning, and the truth behind their silence is going to genuinely surprise you. Let's start with one of the most painful disappearances in Hollywood history, the story of Rick Moranis. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you remember him. Ghostbusters, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Spaceballs, Little Shop of Horrors. The man was a comedy legend with a career that was just exploding. Then in 1991, his wife passed away from cancer, leaving him to raise two young children alone. Rick made one of the bravest decisions in Hollywood history. He walked away. $1 million contracts, sequels, blockbuster offers. He turned them all down to be a full-time father. People assumed he'd come back when the kids grew up, but he didn't. He chose his children over fame every single day for decades. And honestly, when you think about it, what's a Hollywood paycheck worth compared to being there for your kids? Rick understood something most stars never figure out. Some roles in life cannot be filmed. Then there's the legendary case of Daniel Day-Lewis, three-time Oscar winner, widely considered one of the greatest actors of his generation. The kind of man who would disappear into a character so completely that he'd refuse to break character even off camera for months at a time. In 2017, after filming Phantom Thread, he simply announced his retirement. No drama, no controversy, just done. He has often spoken about the toxic nature of the industry, the emotional toll of acting, and the need to step away from a craft that was consuming him. For Daniel, acting wasn't a job. It was a full body, full soul transformation every single time. And eventually, even the greatest performer on earth had to admit that he needed his piece more than another Oscar. Now let's talk about a man whose disappearance broke the hearts of millions of fans, Macaulay Culkin. He was Hollywood's brightest child star in the early 90s. Home Alone made him one of the highest paid kids in the history of cinema. His parents fought publicly over his money. The pressure of being a child megastar nearly destroyed him. By his late teens, he stepped away completely. He didn't want the cute kid roles anymore. He didn't want the constant attention. He didn't want the family drama tied to his fame. He moved to Paris for years. He started indie projects. He even formed a pizza-themed Velvet Underground tribute band. People laughed at first, but honestly, he was just a young man trying to reclaim a life that was stolen from him by fame. His disappearance was less a retirement and more a quiet rescue mission for his own soul. And then there's the heartbreaking story of Cameron Diaz, The Mask, There's Something About Mary, The Holiday, Charlie's Angels. She was one of the highest paid actresses in the world for 2 solid decades. Then in 2014, she filmed Annie and quietly stepped away. No public goodbye. She later said in interviews that Hollywood had stopped feeling fulfilling. She wanted to focus on motherhood. She wanted to live a quieter, calmer life away from the constant chaos of red carpets. For nearly a decade, she stayed gone. She built a wine business. She raised her daughter. She finally came back recently for the Netflix film Back in Action. But what's beautiful about her story is that she walked away when she was still on top on her own terms, without burning a single bridge. Now let's talk about a comeback story that started with one of the most shocking disappearances in modern Hollywood, Hayden Christensen. After playing Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, the criticism he received was absolutely brutal. The internet tore him apart. Critics destroyed his performances. The pressure crushed him, so he did something almost unheard of in Hollywood. He bought a farm in Canada, packed his bags, and disappeared. He wanted to know if he could be a real person again, away from the franchise machine. For years he lived quietly, tending the farm, spending time with his family, healing. And only recently has he returned to play Anakin again in shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka. His disappearance wasn't weakness. It was self-preservation in its most beautiful form. Some actors disappear for tragic reasons. Others disappear simply because they fell out of love with the industry itself. That's the case of Joe Pesci, the man who terrified us in Goodfellas, Casino, and Raging Bull. The same man who made us laugh in Home Alone and My Cousin Vinny. Joe Pesci had a career most actors only dream of, but in 1999, he just retired, quietly, permanently. He once said he simply didn't enjoy the lifestyle anymore. He wanted to play golf. He wanted to make music. He wanted to live his life as a regular human being. He occasionally returns for a special project like The Irishman with Martin Scorsese, but mostly he's gone, and he's perfectly happy that way. Sometimes the bravest thing a star can do is admit that they've had enough. Then there's the unforgettable story of Phoebe Cates, the icon of the 80s, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Gremlins. She was the face of an entire generation. Studios were lining up to give her lead roles in major productions. But then she met Kevin Kline, they got married, they started a family, and in 1994, Phoebe simply chose to walk away. She opened a small boutique in New York. She raised her children. She built a life that had nothing to do with red carpets or premieres. She has rarely returned to the screen since, and she has never expressed a single regret. For Phoebe, family was the masterpiece. Acting was just a side project. Some disappearances happened because of personal struggles. Wes Bentley is a perfect example. After his haunting breakout performance in American Beauty in 1999, he was being called the next great American actor. Hollywood was ready to crown him. But behind the scenes, he was battling a severe addiction to drugs. He turned down massive roles. He lived as a recluse for years. He nearly lost everything. But unlike many stories with dark turns, his ended in light. He got clean. He rebuilt himself slowly through television and supporting roles in shows like Yellowstone. His disappearance was painful, but his return was a quiet miracle. Sometimes Hollywood needs to lose a star for a few years just so that star can find themselves again. Another quiet exit was the legendary Gene Hackman, two-time Oscar winner, star of The French Connection, Unforgiven, The Royal Tenenbaums. He was working consistently for over 50 years. Then in 2004, after filming Welcome to Mooseport, he just stopped. No grand farewell, no press tour. He went home to New Mexico, picked up a pen, and started writing novels. He published several historical fiction books and lived a quiet, peaceful life as an author until his passing in 2025. Gene proved that there is life after Hollywood. And sometimes, the next chapter is more beautiful than anything that came before. Then there's Jack Gleeson. Most people knew him as the cruel, hated King Joffrey from Game of Thrones. The character was so brilliantly evil that fans literally celebrated his death scene like a holiday. But behind the scenes, Jack was a soft-spoken, gentle young man who simply did not want this kind of fame. The moment Joffrey was killed off the show, Jack quietly announced he was leaving acting. He went to college, he studied philosophy and theology, he focused on smaller, intimate theater work in Ireland, for Jack being recognized everywhere as Joffrey was suffocating. He chose anonymity over wealth, peace over popularity, and honestly, in a world of attention-obsessed celebrities, his choice was deeply admirable. There's also the strange and quiet retreat of Greta Garbo, the original disappearing act of Hollywood history. After dominating the silver screen in the 1920s and 1930s, she walked away in 1941 and never returned. For nearly 5 decades, she lived in seclusion in New York City. She refused interviews. She wore disguises in public. Her famous phrase, "I want to be alone," became her real-life mantra. She remains the gold standard for Hollywood disappearance, the ultimate proof that some stars truly belong to themselves and nobody else. So when you put all these stories together, a clear pattern starts to emerge. Hollywood is a beautiful, glamorous, dazzling industry on the outside, but on the inside, it is a crushing machine. The pressure is relentless. The criticism is constant. The cameras never stop. The contracts are punishing, the privacy is non-existent, and for some actors, no amount of fame or money can repair the damage that fame and money cause. Some leave because of grief, like Rick Moranis. Some leave because of addiction, like Wes Bentley. Some leave because of family, like Phoebe Cates. Some leave because they simply hate the industry, like Daniel Day-Lewis. Some leave to find themselves again, like Hayden Christensen. And some leave because they were never meant to be there at all, like Jack Gleeson. But here is the surprising truth most fans never realize. The actors who disappear are often the ones who survive the longest as human beings. They walk away with their minds intact, their families intact, their souls intact, while the industry chews up its biggest stars and spits them out in the most public, painful ways. These brave men and women look at all the lights, all the fame, all the money, and they say, "It's not worth my peace." That kind of courage is rare, maybe even rarer than great acting itself. So the next time you see an actor's name disappear from the trailers and the gossip pages, before you call them washed up, take a moment to wonder, maybe they didn't lose Hollywood. Maybe they finally won themselves. Maybe they're sitting at home with their kids, painting, writing, traveling, healing, breathing. Maybe they're doing the thing the rest of the world is too distracted to do, living, slowly, quietly, beautifully. Now I want to hear from you. Which Hollywood disappearance hit you the hardest? Was it Rick Moranis walking away to be a father? Was it Macaulay Culkin trying to find his soul again in Paris? Was it Hayden Christensen healing on a quiet Canadian farm? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell because the next video on our list is going to be just as powerful. We're going to talk about Hollywood stars who came back stronger after being completely written off by the industry. Trust me, that one is going to inspire you.